Hi, this is Matt at State of Flux, here to talk to you about Zack Snyder's latest directorial effort, Army of the Dead. And this film, well, I'm gonna lay it out there for you. It really didn't work for me. I was really like aggressively not a fan of this film. I like zombie movies by and large, but a lot of them kind of hit their peak and plateau with most of the works of George Romero. And this film kind of suffers from the fact that it kind of picks and chooses the best elements of a George Romero film and applies it onto the framework of James Cameron's masterpiece Aliens. And I'll get into more of the minutiae on that in a little bit here. The film has multiple missteps. I found it to be rather sexist at times, incredibly willfully ignorant or irresponsible regarding like pandemic safety, and just overall wasn't a fan of how it relied so heavily on films that came before. That isn't to say there's not some good stuff in here. I think Dave Bautista is quite good in the film, as is his daughter, Ella Purnell, I believe, is the actress. She's quite good and a standout. There's a lot of the female characters are standouts in the film, and I'll get to the irony of that in a moment. But the thing that works best in the film is the paternal relationship of Batista and his daughter, and you really feel like, knowing the history of Zack Snyder and some of the tragic things that have happened in his past, this film really does sort of capture or romanticize the idea of saving the daughter figure in this film, and the stuff between the father and daughter, their whole relationship really works very well and is quite beautiful at times. And I would say if you just focused on those story elements, this movie could have been a pretty good movie. However, that encapsulates probably 30 minutes of the runtime of almost, if you're watching this in the theater as I did with previews, 2 hours and 45 minutes of your life, and half an hour of quality isn't going to cut it. What didn't work for me was a lot of the things that I mentioned before. I want to address the sexist issues that I had with this film. The film is outrageously sexist at times. The first female character that you are introduced to in this film has no name. She is only there to provide oral pleasure to the main male guy in the scene, who also admittedly doesn't have a name, and that's it. That's the first 5 minutes. The first woman you're introduced to is there to blow some random dude, and that bothered me. Then there's like the typical Zack Snyder opening montage set to music, quite well choreographed and whatnot. And I will say the needle drops throughout the film are pretty on point and pretty good. That said, this one featured quite a bit of female nudity that was completely irrelevant. I will say that it's only females that are naked in this film. There is no males. This is a very male-gazy kind of film, and yeah, there's like zombie showgirls, ooh. But why is that there? And later on, there's another little micro-nude scene that's like, you can almost blink and you miss it, where there's like characters in the forefront of the camera kind of walking by, and right behind them off to the corner, it's at one of the quarantine sites, are people spraying down what looks to be exclusively women with water, who are just like shielding themselves. There's no reason for that, and it's just like egregious. I really disapproved of that. And the thing is like this is completely at conflict with the movie itself, because the movie is asking you to get behind and empower these interesting, some of which are even interesting female characters. The daughter and the blonde mercenary, I can't remember her character's name specifically, they're quite good. But when you have scenes like this that open your movie and introduce the movie, it really just shows that Zack Snyder hasn't grown as a filmmaker in almost 11 years. This is the same problems he had with Watchmen, where you have like female characters that should be awe-inspiring. They're heroes, and the film tells you, yes, they are heroic figures, but the movie also is so reliant on the degradation of women that the two films are like in conflict with each other. The film is ever in conflict with itself over the male gaziness of it and the use of how these characters push forward. Plus, Zack Snyder often fridges the wife, and that happens in this film in a couple of different ways, which is really just disappointing that that's still a thing. There's also and I'm gonna tie this one into my next fact. There's a character who uses his position to sort of create like a pseudo-rapey scene with a couple of the women characters. All of this happens very, very early on in the film. That ties into my next point. My next point is the film is incredibly irresponsible with pandemic safety issues. The movie stops you in the first half hour or so to harness in on like a little news program that like Batista's listening to, where they're debating government's response to the zombie pandemic, right? But it's not really a pandemic. It's centrally located to Las Vegas. But you have one of the characters saying like, next they're going to be holding a temp gun to your head, and what's the government going to be asking you to do next? Sort of criticizing governmental response. And I'm like, okay, I don't agree with that, but I'll give it a pass. However, in the, like, 5 minutes later, in the same beat of the movie, basically, you have a male authority figure using a temp gun and trying to get sexual gratification from these two women, and he's demeaning them and stuff like that, and he's using his power of control with this temp gun. And I'm like, the movie has already asked the audience to be critical of pandemic response and proper safety techniques to continue moving forward in a world that is like imbued with a deadly illness, let's put it that way. And then uses another character, after being critical of the temp gun, to use the temp gun in a negative way, and then have that character demean women. And they try to tie it in later on with an empowering women's stance moment that just really kind of falls flat, or at least it did for me. But I feel like this is just incredibly irresponsible. I get that this movie may have been and probably was filmed pre-pandemic, but the moment that a pandemic hits, you should probably lift those scenes and set them aside or reshoot. I know that, God forbid, he have to shave anything out of his movies. But that stuff was unnecessary and potentially harmful for getting us back to safety. This is a man that wants us to see his movies in the theaters. The way that we're going to be doing that is by appropriate pandemic response. So anyway, I will get off my high horse for a minute and then talk about the structural problems. There's nothing really new in this film. I like the idea of a zombie heist movie, as dumb and dopey as that concept is, because in like a post-apocalyptic world, money shouldn't have value. However, it is centrally located to just Vegas, so I guess, you know what, it does make sense. I gave the film a pass. That was a criticism I had upon watching the trailer. The film addresses that pretty fast. It's pretty much only Vegas that still has zombies. So they need to get in, get the money, get out. They're rich before the nuke drops. And so it's a race against time kind of thing. The problem is this whole film is banking on the whole idea of like having these alpha zombies. You have the regular like street-walking zombies that don't matter, but then you have thinking zombies, cerebral zombies, smart zombies, scary zombies, fast zombies. These zombies are super smart. This was all done before. This has been addressed in both Day of the Dead in 1985 and Land of the Dead in 2005. These are things that that George Romero included in those two films that I thought were utilized much more intelligently, particularly in Land of the Dead, which is a good but somewhat uneven movie. Its use of zombies in that film and the fact that they are thinking and are growing and evolving as the franchise progressed is kind of it was an inspired choice then. Now it's still somewhat inspired because that concept didn't take off and most people don't remember that movie anymore, but this movie doesn't really do much with it outside of creating like an alpha idea, which is something that like Snyder's into, the concept of like a core figure lording above all, and that really just doesn't play for me. Here's where it gets interesting. So the film I mentioned uses the framework of James Cameron's Aliens, sometimes in multiple scenes that are direct lifts from Aliens. It's not like visual similarity, it's sometimes exact dialogue placed on top of each other, or exact conflicts placed on top of each other. The only thing he did is flip the gender dynamic. So instead of following Ripley as this compelling main character, trying to get so desperately back to her posit daughter figure to face off with this other mother who Ripley has annihilated the children of, ended the unborn line, and you have a conflict between two mothers. This film just changes the gender dynamic, and it's Batista, the daughter, the alpha zombie, and a revenge plan to get back at the human figures for what they do to the alpha queen, and what like secrets lie there. And once like you really put the two films next to each other, it's like beat for beat the same, and it comes to the same kind of dramatic climax, especially once the helicopters get involved. And the whole time I'm sitting there watching this movie that's 2.5 hours, feeling like I've seen it before. There's nothing new here. The only thing that's new is Zack Snyder hasn't made Aliens, but now he has. This doesn't even feel too... It's a good sister film, I guess, to his incarnation of Dawn of the Dead, a film that a lot of people liked back in the day. I thought it was okay. I don't know how well it holds up. I'd be curious to see what I think of that movie, because I sort of hold that up as one of his better titles. But yeah, it doesn't offer really anything new. The fast zombie thing has been done before. The thinking zombie thing has been done before. The like a heist movie with a zombie movie hasn't really been done, but it's not really particularly compelling. The action in this movie is kind of neat, but Zack Snyder knows how to shoot action. It's where the little scenes and the interconnective tissue where Snyder kind of falls apart because he doesn't understand the thought process and meaning behind everything he shows outside of, isn't this cool? But you gotta think beyond, isn't this cool? and the thought that he put into this film, I think, is somewhat damaging at times. I mentioned with the pandemic stuff, and certainly the use of females versus females that are characters versus the use of females that are not characters, that are just eye candy, and yeah, I was not a fan of Zack Snyder's Justice League. I am one of the few people in this world, apparently, that thinks that the theatrical cut of that film of Justice League is better than Zack Snyder's cut. Zack Snyder's cut might make more sense, but that doesn't mean much. I said when that movie came out that I'd be shocked if that wasn't the worst movie of the year. Well, he did it. He accepted the challenge, and for me, this movie is worse than his cut of Justice League. I give this one a 1 star out of 4. I think I am going to be closing the book on Zack Snyder for a while. Maybe I'll attempt one of his other movies if they get a lot of really positive buzz, or he finds something that interests me once again, but I think it's time for me to put a stop to watching his movies, because I don't like feeling like this. I like to go to movies to have fun, and even in his pseudo-fun movies, they're mean-spirited and degrading, and I don't know. So anyway, long story short, Army of the Dead, not for me. If you're a Zack Snyder fan, you're probably going to dig it. If you're a Zack Snyder fan, you're probably going to attack me. I'm used to it. Yeah, check it out in theaters while it's playing. It's got an exclusive window for 1 week, exclusive to theaters before it hits its Netflix release. I also did a review for Spiral from the Book of Saw, which should also be up online. Give that a watch. That one is one that I was mildly surprised at. Yeah, so check out the review for that. Leave your thoughts on this movie, what your favorite Zack Snyder movie is. Mine is The Guardians of Ga'Hoole, the Owl movie. Woo! And yeah, have a good one, and thanks for watching.